Money can't buy you love, they say. But what happens when you've spent your whole life believing that love doesn't exist? When the only person who ever truly loved you is slipping away and a stranger shows you what real love looks like? This is a story about a man who had everything money could buy, but nothing his heart truly needed. Stay with me, because what happens next will change how you think about love, loss, and the connections that truly matter. My name is Daniel Richardson, and 3 years ago, I was worth $2.3 billion. I lived in a glass penthouse that overlooked the entire city, drove cars that cost more than most people's houses, and could buy anything I wanted with a single phone call. But I was the poorest man alive, and I didn't even know it. I learned early that love was a luxury I couldn't afford. I was 12 when my father walked out on us. I still remember the sound of the door closing behind him, the way my mother's shoulders shook as she tried not to cry in front of me. "People leave, Daniel," she told me that night, trying to be strong. "But we'll be okay. We don't need anyone." That became my motto. People leave. Money stays. Love is just pretty lies, people tell themselves before they get hurt. My mother Helen worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, cleaning offices at night, serving lunch at the diner, and taking in sewing on weekends. I watched her fingers crack from the cold, saw her fall asleep standing up from exhaustion. I promised myself I'd never be that vulnerable, never depend on anyone the way she had depended on my father. I'd make so much money that I'd never need anything from anyone. And I did. I built my tech company from nothing, working 18-hour days, sleeping in my office, treating relationships like business transactions. I was successful, powerful, untouchable. I had everything I thought I wanted, but I was completely alone. My penthouse was silent except for the hum of expensive appliances. I ate dinner by myself every night, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city look like a circuit board below me. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. Who calls at that hour except for emergencies? But something made me pick up. "Mr. Richardson?" The voice was shaky, unfamiliar. "This is Margaret, your mother's neighbor. She collapsed. We're at St. Mary's Hospital. You need to come now." I don't remember getting dressed or driving through the empty streets. I just remember the smell when I walked into that hospital. Disinfectant trying to mask something darker, the fluorescent lights that made everything look like a crime scene, the sound of machines beeping like electronic heartbeats. I followed the signs to the ICU, my expensive shoes squeaking on the polished floor. That's when I saw her. She was checking on a patient in the bed across from where they'd taken my mother. A young black woman in scrubs, maybe 28, with her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She moved with such gentle purpose, adjusting the blanket around an elderly man's shoulders, checking his IV with careful hands. There was something about the way she touched his arm reassuringly, the way she spoke to him in a soft voice, even though he was unconscious. I'd never seen anything like it. "Are you Daniel Richardson?" A doctor appeared beside me, clipboard in hand, looking tired. "I'm Dr. Martinez. We need to talk." The words he said next hit me like a physical blow. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Weeks, maybe a month. "I'm sorry." The hallway started spinning. My knees felt weak. This couldn't be happening. My mother was only 62. She was supposed to live forever, supposed to see me finally figure out how to be happy. "Your mother is resting now," the doctor continued. "We'll do everything we can to keep her comfortable." Comfortable. What a terrible word. It meant they were giving up. It meant I was about to lose the only person who had ever loved me unconditionally. I stumbled into her room and saw her lying there, so small in that hospital bed, connected to machines that beeped and hummed around her like mechanical prayers. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. This wasn't the strong woman who had raised me, who had worked herself to the bone to give me a better life. This was someone fragile, someone leaving. "Mr. Richardson?" That soft voice again. I turned to see the nurse from the hallway. "I'm Camilla Rodriguez. I'll be taking care of your mother during my shifts." I wanted to tell her I could pay for the best care. That money was no object. But something in her eyes stopped me. They were kind but not pitying, professional but warm. She looked at my mother like she was already family. "What can I do?" I asked, and my voice cracked like I was 12 years old again. "You can be here," she said simply. "That's what she needs most." Over the next few days, I watched Camilla work. She wasn't just doing a job. She was caring for my mother like she was her own. She braided Helen's thinning hair when it got tangled from lying in bed. She hummed softly during the painful treatments. She held my mother's hand when the pain got bad, never rushing, never acting like she had somewhere else to be. I tried to do what I always did, throw money at the problem. I offered to pay for a private room, the best specialists, experimental treatments, but Camilla just looked at me with those patient eyes and said, "Mr. Richardson, your mother doesn't need expensive things. She needs you." That's when I realized I didn't know how to just be with someone. I'd spent so many years building walls, protecting myself, that I'd forgotten how to simply sit with another person. But Camilla taught me. She showed me how to hold my mother's hand properly, not like I was afraid of breaking her, but like I was present, like I was there. She taught me to read to Helen, to play her favorite music, to talk to her even when she was sleeping. "Tell her about your day," Camilla suggested one evening. "Tell her about your life. She wants to know you're okay." So I started talking. I told my mother about my company, about the deals I was making, about the penthouse and the cars and all the things I thought mattered. But as the words came out, they sounded hollow. What was I really telling her? That I was successful but alone? That I had everything but nothing? One night around 3 a.m., I was sitting in that uncomfortable chair beside my mother's bed when Camilla appeared with a cup of coffee. She didn't say anything at first, just handed it to me and sat down in the other chair. "You don't have to stay," I said. "Your shift ended hours ago." "I know," she replied, "but sometimes people need someone to sit with them in the dark." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the rhythm of my mother's breathing, the distant sounds of the hospital at night. Finally, I asked, "Why do you do this? Why do you care so much?" Camilla was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother died alone in a hospital in Mexico," she said eventually. "My family couldn't afford to bring her here, couldn't afford to visit. She died with strangers. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to anyone else if I could help it." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "Don't be sorry," she replied. "Just don't let that be your mother's story. She's not alone. She has you." But I was starting to realize that I had her too. Over the following weeks, I found myself looking forward to Camilla's shifts. She'd tell me stories about her family, about her younger siblings she was putting through school, about her dreams of becoming a nurse practitioner. She was studying at night, working double shifts, supporting her family, but she never complained. She had so little compared to me, but she seemed richer in ways I couldn't understand. One day I brought her flowers, just a small bunch of yellow daisies from the hospital gift shop. "Thank you," I said, feeling awkward, "for seeing her as more than just another patient." Camilla smiled, and it was like sunrise. "These are my favorite," she said. "How did you know?" I hadn't known. I'd just seen them and thought of her brightness, her warmth. "Lucky guess," I said. As my mother got weaker, something strange happened. I started getting stronger. Not physically. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, running on coffee and hope. But something inside me was changing. The walls I'd built so carefully were crumbling, and instead of feeling exposed, I felt free. One evening, my mother was having a good day. She was awake and alert, and she looked at me with those eyes that had seen me through every phase of my life. "Daniel," she said, her voice still weak but determined. "That nurse Camilla, she's special." "I know, Mom." "No, you don't know. Not yet. But you will." She reached for my hand. "Take her to dinner. She's been caring for me. Now you care for her." I wanted to argue, to say it was inappropriate, that Camilla was just doing her job. But deep down, I knew my mother was right. Camilla had become more than just a nurse to me. She'd become a light in the darkest time of my life. So I asked her. Standing in the hospital parking lot after her shift, still in her scrubs, looking tired but beautiful. "Would you have dinner with me?" I asked. "Not because I'm trying to pay you back or anything, just because I'd like to get to know you better." She studied my face for a long moment. "Okay," she said finally, "but somewhere normal. No fancy restaurants." We went to a little diner she loved, the kind of place I would have walked past without noticing before. The vinyl booths were cracked, the coffee was served in thick white mugs, and the pie was homemade. It was perfect. We talked for hours. Real conversation, not the business negotiations I was used to. She told me about growing up in a house with 6 siblings, about her parents who had crossed the border with nothing but hope and determination. She told me about her dreams, her fears, her favorite books and movies. And I found myself telling her things I'd never told anyone, about the loneliness, about the fear that I was becoming just like my father, about the way success felt empty when you had no one to share it with. When we walked back to the hospital parking lot, the night air was cool and full of stars I'd never noticed from my penthouse windows. We stood by her car, neither of us wanting the evening to end. "Thank you," I said, "for tonight, for everything." She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my heart race. Not fear, not calculation, but something warm and real. "You're not what I expected," she said. "What did you expect?" "Someone colder, someone who couldn't learn to love." And then she kissed me, soft and gentle, like everything else about her. It was my first real kiss, the first time I'd ever felt that combination of tenderness and desire, of being completely present with another person. When we broke apart, I was shaking. "I think I'm falling in love with you," I whispered. And I'd never said those words before in my life. "I think I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered back. Over the next few weeks, as my mother's condition worsened, my relationship with Camilla deepened. She taught me to find beauty in small moments. The way the morning light came through the hospital window, the sound of my mother's laughter when she was having a good day, the feeling of Camilla's hand in mine as we walked through the hospital garden during her breaks. I started bringing her little gifts, not expensive things. I was learning that wasn't what mattered. A book of poetry she'd mentioned, her favorite coffee, lunch from the Mexican restaurant where her family used to celebrate birthdays. Each gift was chosen with care, with thought, with love. One weekend, I asked her to come away with me. "My mother's stable," I said. "The doctors think she has a few more weeks. She keeps telling me to live, to not waste time. Come with me. Please." Camilla hesitated. "I don't know. My duty is to her." But my mother heard us talking. "Go, mija," she said, using the Spanish endearment that Camilla had taught her. "Go live. I'll be here when you return, and Daniel needs to learn how to be happy." So we went to a cabin by a lake, 3 hours north of the city. It wasn't one of my usual luxury resorts. It was small and simple, with a fireplace and a view of the water. We cooked dinner together, something I'd never done before. We sat on the porch and watched the sunset paint the sky in colors I'd never taken time to notice. That night, we made love for the first time. Not sex, I'd had plenty of that. Meaningless encounters that left me feeling more alone than before. This was different. This was connection, vulnerability, two people choosing to be completely present with each other. Afterward, we lay in each other's arms, listening to the sound of water lapping against the shore. "I love you," I said, and this time I knew what those words meant. "I love you too," she replied, and I felt like I was finally, truly alive. We should have known it was too good to last. We should have known that happiness this pure was fragile. The call came early Sunday morning. My mother had taken a turn for the worse. We needed to come back immediately. The drive back to the city was a blur of speed and prayer. I kept thinking about all the things I hadn't said to her, all the ways I'd wasted time. Camilla held my hand as I drove, her presence the only thing keeping me from falling apart. When we got to the hospital, my mother was conscious, but barely. Her breathing was labored, her skin pale and cold. Dr. Martinez pulled me aside. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's time." I sat on one side of her bed, Camilla on the other. My mother's eyes were closed, but she was still fighting, still breathing. I took her hand, the way Camilla had taught me. "I'm here, Mom," I said. "I'm here, and I'm not alone anymore. You did it. You taught me how to love." Her eyes opened, just a little. She looked at me, then at Camilla, then back at me. "You found your heart, mijo," she whispered. "Don't lose it again." Those were her last coherent words. As her breathing became more labored, more irregular, Camilla reached across the bed and took her other hand. She began to hum, the same gentle melody she'd hummed during those painful treatments. My mother's face relaxed, and for a moment, she looked peaceful. "Take care of each other," she whispered, so soft I almost missed it. And then she was gone. The machines went quiet. The room filled with a silence that felt both empty and full. I broke down completely, sobbing like a child, grieving not just for my mother, but for all the years I'd wasted being afraid to love. Camilla held me as I cried, her own tears falling silently. "She knew," she said. "She knew you were going to be okay." The funeral was small. My mother hadn't had many friends. She'd been too busy working, too proud to let people get close. But Camilla's family came. People who had never met my mother, but who loved Camilla and wanted to support her. For the first time in my life, I understood what community meant. 6 months later, I was a different man. I'd restructured my entire company, treating employees like family instead of resources. I'd started a foundation that provided scholarships for nursing students, especially those from immigrant families. I'd sold the penthouse and bought a house, a real house with a garden and a front porch, close enough to Camilla's family that we could have Sunday dinners together. Camilla had moved in with me, but slowly, carefully. We were both learning how to be in a relationship, how to build something real and lasting. I was learning that love wasn't about possession or control. It was about choosing each other every day, even when it was hard. One evening, 6 months after my mother's death, I was sitting in our garden watching Camilla water the daisies we'd planted in Helen's memory. She was humming that same gentle melody, and I realized that I'd found my home. Not in a building or a city, but in her, in us, in the life we were building together. I got down on one knee right there in the dirt, holding my mother's engagement ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond. Nothing fancy, but full of love. "Camilla," I said, and my voice was shaking, "you taught me that the richest life isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in moments like this, in love like this. Will you marry me?" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and nodded. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course. Yes." We were married 6 months later in the hospital chapel where we'd met. It seemed fitting, that place of pain and healing where I'd learned what love really meant. My vows were simple. "You taught me that the richest man isn't the one with the most money. He's the one who loves and is loved in return." Camilla's vows made me cry. "You showed me that broken hearts can heal and that love can bloom anywhere, even in the darkest places." We danced to my mother's favorite song, "At Last" by Etta James, and I could swear I felt her presence there, smiling, finally seeing her son truly happy. After the reception, we walked to the hospital garden where we'd planted a memorial for my mother. Camilla laid her bridal bouquet, yellow daisies of course, at the base of the small stone marker. "Thank you," I whispered to my mother's memory, "for bringing us together, for teaching me that love isn't weakness. It's the only real strength." Camilla took my hand, and we stood there in the gathering dusk, no longer afraid of the future, no longer alone. Today, 3 years later, I'm worth much less in dollars than I was before. I've given away most of my wealth, kept only what we need to live comfortably and help others. But I'm richer than I ever dreamed possible. I have a wife who loves me, a family that includes her siblings and parents, work that matters, and a heart that's finally learned how to be full. Money can't buy you love, they say, but they're wrong about one thing. Love can buy you everything that really matters. It can buy you purpose, connection, joy, and the kind of wealth that can never be taken away. My mother was right. People do leave sometimes, but the right person, the one who sees your heart and chooses to stay, that person makes all the difference. That person makes you rich in ways you never knew were possible. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that person finds you in a hospital hallway, holding someone's hand as they take their last breath, showing you what love really looks like. Love finds us in the most unexpected places, often when we need it most. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the deepest pain. Like and subscribe for more stories that prove love really can heal everything.